now 7:03 p.m. And Ms. Covare, if we could get members present.
Marie Brizuela.
Here.
Clayton Koo.
Here.
Rebecca Douglas.
Here.
Manufo Leah Inga Anawai.
Here. And Board Trustee Ali will be with us soon. He's running a little late this evening. He has notified our superintendent. And we will begin our meeting with our Pledge of Allegiance. And we don't have anyone leading us this evening, so we will ask, Board Trustee Ali is with us. We will ask Dr. Douglas to lead us.
Everyone stand, please. Right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Dr. Douglas. Okay. Our board meeting guidelines. Our board members will review our board meeting guidelines and report how well they adhered to the meeting guidelines at the end of our meeting. And before we move on to the approval of the agenda, I wanted to mention that we are removing item 10G from the agenda. And we are also looking to move item 8F tonight after, after 8A. Is that correct, Superintendent Vidalis? So 10G, we are removing 10G.
We're removing it entirely or removing it off of the consent agenda? Entirely, okay.
Okay, and where's the other one? Oh, okay.
And 8F coming right after.
And
Okay, that
then
makes
moving
sense.
8F tonight to,
What's the other one? I'm sorry.
and then the second request is to move item 8F,
8F? Oh,
yes, right after 8B.
Wait, I'm sorry. I thought you said G. Did you say
first
B?
one
Is to, the first request is to remove 10G entirely from tonight's agenda.
Okay.
And then the second request is to move item 8F
F.
to come right after 8A.
Okay, so you want F after 8A. This one? Oh, this one. This one up here. Okay, I see. I'm sorry.
All right,
I thought I
no,
heard you say
no.
something else. I'm going, this is confusing.
Okay, then.
Okay, so do we have any other requests for agenda edits from the consent? Okay, okay.
So I make the motion that we approve the agenda with the changes, removing item 10G from the agenda and relocating 8F to follow immediately on 8A.
Okay,
Second.
we have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, unanimous. And right now we have special presentations, Family Engagement Institute and Parent Involvement Advisory Committee updates will be providing us information. Sarah Rich, principal of Woodrow Wilson, and families will share the outcomes and experiences from participating in the Family Engagement Institute, along with teacher leaders and parent leaders. This was provided to for pilot schools in our district, Daniel Webster, Thomas R. Palacita, Westlake, and Woodrow Wilson, and was funded through a grant by California Dedicated to Education representatives from our PIAC. Our PIAC will share updates regarding family engagement. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Sarah Rich, and this is Linda McNesby, one of our teacher leaders. And we had a great time going to the Family Engagement Seminar. One of our biggest goals from going to the Family Engagement Seminar was to really create an inviting space on campus for families. We have amazing families, but they're not lingering on our campus. So we wanted to figure out a way to keep them and entice them and make sure that everything that they needed was happening at Woodrow.
Community schools.
Am I?
Don't stay there.
Oh, there it goes. So we were really lucky to be one of the schools chosen to become a community school. Linda, I'll let you talk about that a little bit.
Okay, so our community school
don't know if you recognize that space. Brent, you recognize that? That's our old book room, yeah. So we cleaned out the old book room. Anyway, so this has intent to be a resource room. All we need to do is fill it with a coordinator, but that person would be a resource to parents for counseling, needed food, legal services, taxes, parenting, kids in the school, how you can help them, all these kinds of things. And then we have our food bank. This is a picture from our first food bank that we had. So we have a food bank once a month, and we've had it on our school grounds, and then we've recently moved over to the church, which is across the street. But it's one Saturday a month. We have 180 families at our school that are eligible, and we served 112 at the last food bank. And each family that is on, recorded on record with us, they've received between 100 and 120 pounds of food, fresh vegetables, fruits, staples like milk, cheese, peanut butter, chicken. Anyway, so we served 112 last month, which was great.
Very good.
And then we were talking about math night, or we'll wait on that one. Go ahead.
So our goal was, how can school become everything? How can become the center of everything and really become a community school? We also started a whole bunch of parent education classes. So we partnered with Star Vista, and they are providing every Wednesday night, actually tonight's graduation, so none of the moms could be here, for their parent education class. And they love it. They come, they have childcare for their kids, and they are learning how to just be a better parent. We feel really good about providing that. Star Vista also is doing a cafecito every Thursday for us. And part of the cafecito is, it's basically like a support group for a lot of our moms. And there's about 12 moms who come on a regular basis. And just today they were there helping us set up for our art show. And it was this beautiful moment where all of the cafecito moms were also now volunteering in our school in this incredibly intense way, because they have these relationships, because schools that become this amazing center of everything for them. We also started, our goal is to just have parents booked up every day of the week. So on Fridays, they have a cooking class. And all of this is happening actually in Spanish. The cafecito's in Spanish, our cooking class is in Spanish, and the parent education class is in Spanish.
And there's our family. Okay. And then also we've had math night, where it was sponsored by AFT and also a philanthropic grant. So we had 11 teachers there, and we were able to give them each a stipend, which was really nice, instead of just saying, oh, come volunteer. To where we had all the grade levels represented, showing parents how we do math, how they can help their own kids. We played math games, give them, make and takes kind of things on how you can work with your kids. We had a set of laptops there, so we showed them how to get on front row and how to use that, and Lexia, various math, interventions. And we showed them how students can use these at home and, using their Google accounts. A lot of parents weren't aware that, we tell the kids we can set assignments and they can do them at home. You can do them on your parents' phone if you want to, I guess. But anyway, so the parents really loved it. We had giveaways and we had dinner. The parent group made dinner. And, we had these like backpacks full of pencils and notepads and things like that. But we felt like this was very good at, we're getting really good at community building, and it's really important in most of our neighborhoods here in Daly City. I mean, we find it very important. And that this math night was just one of the things that, brings our community together. So.
And the other thing that happened was, by having this moment of myself, parent leaders, and teacher leaders all together at the Institute, we could start having conversations of what we wanted to build and what we wanted to see. And the idea of the community school and school being the center of it all was really our vision. They really pushed us, though, to even think further than that at the Institute. It wasn't just enough to have families on our campus. The question was, how are we going to raise academic achievement while having families on campus? How do we join those two together? So we started this year doing Lexia, an online reading program, and it's been amazing for our community. So at every one of those events you saw before, the food bank, the math night, Cafe Seed, like anytime families are on campus now, we're asking them if they have the login for their kids for Lexia. And we're showing them how to log on to Lexia. Even when we had our family dance, it wasn't as successful as we thought it was going to be, but we had the Lexia person at the family dance explaining to them how to log on to Lexia. So if you can look on our graph, you can see the progress of our kids, even if I don't even tell you the numbers. The deep blue is our above grade level achievement, and the blue is within your grade level band achievement, and the gray is still our work to be had. So you can see when we started, 45% of our kids were within their grade level band, and now we're at 57%. And we only started in like November? It wasn't,
No, I think it was after that.
it wasn't,
Yeah.
the point is, it hasn't been that long that we've been doing Lexia, and it has already affected our achievement. The picture on the left is one of the, it just happened actually today. I'm gonna be honest, I was in a classroom chit-chatting with a teacher about our intervention team, and the class went wild. Angelo had just passed another level. And all of the kids were standing around him. And I knew I was coming to you tonight, and it symbolized for me of the like excitement that our kids are now feeling about being in charge of their own learning. And our next step that I talked to Linda earlier today was we need more laptops on our campus because there's an amazing digital divide for our community. So we just reached out to our community school partner, AFT, to see if we could get some laptops before that grant of the community schools closes. And I wanted to show you, this is like what the kids get when they become a Lexia superstar. They're super into it.
Also, Daly City Partnership has been really,
Oh, yeah.
encouraging, and they really show up when we need them too. And so they've come in a couple
about
times
that.
during the year and, brought like things from Pat's Closet, and they gave us the rug for that room right there. And,
They give us the couches.
yeah.
And the point is that it's been really beautiful as we've partnered with all of these people to create kind of a community school and raise student achievement.
And also our connection with the UC with our gardening.
Oh, yeah.
And Maywu. So they've all been really supportive.
Linda just started a garden.
Oh,
We
yeah.
just started a garden.
Where's the garden?
Right on our playground. We have no grass over there, so
I know, that's why I'm asking. Yeah.
so it's against the wall, and so we have planters. So
And the mayor's office actually helped us get more planters recently.
yeah. So we have radishes and carrots and tomatoes growing, and then the after-school program has beans, and then we have squash growing too.
So Woodrow Wilson is one of 4 schools that participate in this Family Engagement Institute, and it's part of what we were looking at for our Parent Involvement Advisory Committee, and so we kind of paired up together to present tonight. We wanted to showcase what they've been doing at Woodrow, and then also show how this has been kind of a focus of our Parent Involvement Advisory Committee, where this year, members of the committee looked at the PTA National Standards for Family Engagement. There's quite a few standards, and we narrowed it down to 4 that we said we wanted to put into our LCAP. And so these are the 4, we adapted them. They're not word for word from the PTA national standards, but these are the 4 that are presented in tonight's LCAP draft that we felt were important to have as part of our family engagement. And so it's really partnering with the parent-teacher associations and organizations, making sure that we include our local libraries, creating family resource centers, and then just really making sure we work with families on identifying students that are needing support. And then working with business and community partners. So just a lot of outreach and a lot of support. But what was exciting about what Woodrow and the other schools did was all the work that they did to engage families was always linked to learning. And so, the ultimate outcome is we want our students to be successful in their careers and beyond. And so engaging families not only in just the exciting activities, but also in the learning. And so kudos to Woodrow and all you have done and with all of your families. So I just wanted to tag in to the PIAC. I also have copies of those goals or actions as well. But I'll turn it back to Woodrow if you have questions for them.
Yes, Rebecca.
I'm trying to remember what the question was. I had one.
Okay, that's all
I
right.
did too a minute ago.
It'll come eventually, I hope.
Senior moments here.
I'll just give a shout out to Bill. That was a book room, and they put LED lights. They repainted it. You wouldn't even recognize it. It was great. So Bill did that.
That's not a question, but that does make me think about how important it is
to have that kind of space at a school, whether it's the PTA, the parents in general, where parents can feel at home. And also, I mean, in a really practical way, for the PTA to have space to keep their records, do their work. And I assume that works for that as well. I remember that being important when I was a parent at Tobias, and having, being very involved and having a space there where we could go and PTA moms could just sit there and talk as well as deal with the work that needs to go on, and making that school our home, and all of us bringing our younger children. So before they even started school, they knew that school as a familiar and comfortable place, and that's a great jump start. So kudos to
And we
you.
want them to be comfortable at school.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
we want our kids to be accountable for things, and we want the parents, they need to feel comfortable coming to school
Mhm.
and communicating with the teachers and
Yeah.
administration and everybody.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Did we have any comments from the board trustees?
You go. No, go ahead.
Ladies first.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Oh,
Okay, well, thank you for all the hard work. I'm really excited to see this update. This is something that we've been, planning and getting ready for a long time. And I'm just wondering, are there any plans for next year? Anything new or,
well, first things first is we need to hire that community. I know. So we do need to have somebody in place for that, because our school was supposed to be taking the lead on this, at least for the first year, and then we'll see what happens. But so we need to do that. And I know that we had a few people that we were going to interview, but we really felt it important that we needed a Spanish speaker, to be in that spot. So we're.
So that's the highest priority right now, is
Yeah,
hire
because
that
we're all
person.
set. Look at that, it's
Yeah.
getting dusty sitting there.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So we're ready for that.
Okay,
But we're
thank
super
you.
excited also to our Lexia to start from the start of the school year, right? Because we jump started it late, and the whole district actually, I don't know if you've said it already, but is going to do Lexia next year. So we're trying to think about how do we keep our kids on it over the summer? How do we make sure parents that aren't on it right now do get on it? And how do we get some more, we're thinking about, the other day we had a conversation, if we're there till June, do we invite people to come on campus to use our computers during the summer? Because they don't have computers. And we're trying to think creatively about, there's a real digital divide we've seen in our community, and how do we really become, again, the center for all of that?
Well, thanks once again, and it's really important we need everyone to get involved, everyone from the community, from the business community, social services. So I'm glad that we're fostering that community space right now.
And we found that we were doing a lot of these things anyway as a site.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of sites are. Everyone, the soul shop and all these different things. But if you have one central person to pull it
To
all together,
coordinate
to where
it.
parents know they can go and get assistance, it would be even better.
Well, I just get excited watching you get excited. But it sounds really great because it's something we talked about for a while, that we really wanted community schools. I know we had them when we went to school many, many moons ago. And they even had dentists there and stuff, all kinds of stuff, because not all families could afford to do that.
That's right.
But it is, like you say, the school is someplace where parents can feel comfortable, and they will then go and make sure that their children are more engaged as well. So thank you. And then maybe somewhere in the future, since we do have sounds like you have a population more Hispanic, that perhaps we could even have some of the parents be able to take English there.
So we have. This is
You
so
do
funny.
already?
We do have an English class. We should have put that on our slide, huh?
You didn't say
They want
that.
their pictures taken probably.
But that's in
Okay.
some
You
ways.
started. Brent started that.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, I blew it. I'm sorry. Oh, no, because I was involved in a lot of that before, in South San Francisco. But I just wanted to so if you're doing that, then I don't have to say do it. But, because that's really important when they start to be able to feel they can learn the things that they have to say to the children about the school.
And at parent-teacher conferences.
Yeah,
We want to
right.
make people feel comfortable.
Yeah. So it sounds great. So I hope we could keep this going, and growing. And then the one thing that we always notice about Woodrow Wilson is there's no green space out there. We're hoping
But
we
Linda
can-
made it happen.
Yeah, huh?
I
That's
should
what
have
we
brought the pictures.
You know,
Sorry.
she sent me the picture and I didn't include it. I feel bad now. She has. Well, tell them what your garden looks like.
Well, we have 5 raised beds. Like I was saying, we have carrots and beans and radishes and all that. But we also have planters outside some of the classrooms.
We got a $1,000
Yeah, we have more coming. I guess.
grant
Yeah.
from
Good.
Kaiser to start it, and it was
Yes.
so successful. And Linda was so proud that when the mayor came to visit, because on something else, we said that we were hoping to expand it, and she connected us to San Mateo County. So we're gonna add 4 more because Linda, all of her things are growing so well
Yay.
that we needed more planters actually.
Yeah. And it's brought people through the
Yeah.
school, like when we're there, people that live around the neighborhood will come through and say, oh, what are you growing?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have a lot of people that want to come in and like partner up with it, so. And the kids love to see it. They can't imagine the radishes are like this big coming out of the ground. They don't like them.
Yeah, no, but they like to see
It's
them
cool
grow.
when they grow,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, it sounds really great, and thank you for working on this and making it happen. Okay.
Do we have any other comments or feedback? Yeah, thank you very much. I love the innovative ideas of access and also the creative methods of creating a community garden for our students. So we hope that you get a coordinator soon so that, this can continue, the leadership can continue at our other sites. And all we can say is we commend you and kudos for everything that you're currently doing, and we look forward to see what you continue to do for us and our students. So
Thanks.
thank you.
Thanks.
I'm so excited.
Now we move on to communications, board member acknowledgements and commendations. We can start with Dr. Douglas.
Trying to think, there's so much going on right now in all the schools, and so I think I'll just make a general commendation to everybody and for all the wonderful, this is the time of year when all the arts come out, and that's, such a great thing, and just, I know it's a ton of work, so I'm gonna send my commendations to the teachers and the parents who make all that happen for our schools at all of the school sites.
Thank you. Trustee Koo.
Sorry, I'm lost my voice, but I want to commend a couple events I went to last week. The PTA Awards dinner. It was a great showing by PTAs from across the school district, as well as the people who went to the PAC meeting last week. And then I also stopped by the Ben Franklin open house last week.
Thank you. Trustee Buswala.
Well, I have to apologize for missing not only a board meeting, but some other activities because we had to go to our granddaughter and grandson's graduation, one from Tennessee and one from Florida, and a side trip to Kentucky in 7 days. But anyway, I just want to say, I know we're coming up with graduations pretty soon, and it's to say to everybody, congratulations to what they've done in our schools, for the teachers who teach, for the classified that help everything that they do, and for administrators for being there on top with the bat and ball there. And to say that I'm very proud of what our district is doing, and I know that next year we can do even more. And that I see teachers, principals, and everyone on site being excited very much about what's going on. And we can only just keep going forward and doing more and more, because our children really deserve the best. So I know I attended something a couple of weeks ago, but I'm not going to remember that right now because it's so long ago. So I'm going to do what you did also, and just say thank you everybody for everything, and we have things coming up this next week, and we'll all be celebrating, and then summer. Okay.
Trustee Ali.
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you. I echo the sentiments of my fellow colleagues on the board, and just continue to applaud all of the efforts at all of our school sites. And for me, I'm just in celebration mode, but I also wanted to apologize that I wasn't here at our last meeting due to a family emergency. But I want to say congratulations to all the families that are celebrating all of their children and the children of our community, near and far. Congratulations to Trustee Brusuela. I had the best Mother's Day gift. I got to celebrate my son who graduated from Cal.
Yeah.
Last night, I got to celebrate my younger son who serves as the president of the learning community at College of San Mateo and who will be heading to UC Riverside. And I'm just excited because they are products of this school district. So we have a lot to be grateful for, but I, like my colleagues, continue to take great pride in the wonderful happenings that we have here. So thank you again. Right now, we will turn the time over to our superintendent for correspondence.
Yeah, I have a couple of, I have a correspondence as well as some commendations. So last week I was notified that 6 of our schools were selected by the California Businesses for Educational Excellence Honor Roll. We had Westlake, Thomas Edison, George Washington, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Ben Franklin, and Fernando Rivera. These 6 schools were selected for gap closing progress, being able to improve the achievement of students that are been typically underperforming in relation to the other students while raising everybody else's achievement. So last year we had 3. And so we were proud that we were able to double that. And this was based on 2017 results. And so I'm expecting to see at least 6 schools be selected for the 2018, if not more. That would be a great thing. Second thing, I just learned this morning, MP Brown's Youth Cinema Project have been working on some films, and they're getting ready to do their premiere next Tuesday, I believe, in San Jose. And I've been working for the last 6-8 weeks with 1 or 2 emails a week, every week, to try to get a local theater to sponsor them and allow them to screen their films here in Daly City. And so they are going to be able to be shown at the Cinemark Theater, the Century 20th Theater, Monday the 4th at 6:30. And we'll get a flyer out with some registration information for how to be able to show up for that. So we're excited about that. The kids, I didn't tell them, but Ms. Goff was going to tell them today that they're going to be able to show their film locally. So. And the last thing is, as always, I get the correspondence from the county around our budget and after they review it, and I did just want to highlight some sentences from their full report, which will be in our agenda minutes. First is that the second interim report that was adopted by the board appears to adequately reflect the financial and budgetary status of the district and is consistent with the state's criteria and standards. So they agree with our positive certification. Other observations they made was that the general fund expenditures increased at the second interim by approximately $2 million, due primarily to adjustments in certificated and classified salaries and benefits. Special education student transportation cost increases of $450,000. And other adjustments and fees for students who are enrolled in our county-operated programs. So as a summary statement, they said our second interim deficit in the general fund increased from $3.7 million to approximately $5 million due to this increase in spending. Other observational notes that they made or suggestions, advice, reads that the San Mateo County Office of Education, in its common message that advised all districts, not just us, against balancing the 2018-19 budget on one-time funds. Districts that budget these funds and their 2018-19 projections need to ensure that the spending plan is flexible, scalable, and adjustable. Bold and underlined, it reads, the district is encouraged to monitor the state budget and develop alternative plans should the proposed one-time funding be reduced or eliminated in the final state budget adoption. The use of one-time revenue sources will not address the underlying structural problems. And lastly, another bold and underlined statement, well, not lastly, there's a couple more, said that the county superintendent is concerned with Jefferson Elementary School District's significant operating budget in the unrestricted general fund. So the ending balance in the general fund declines from 7.9 million to 3.3 million over the next 2 fiscal years. And they advise again that we are strongly encouraged to continue developing a fiscal solvency plan to achieve a balanced budget in the future to ensure continued fiscal stability. It's important to establish and maintain a healthy reserve to provide the district protection and flexibility to meet future contingencies and ensure no disruption to the educational program, services to students, or our payroll commitments. And that's about it. We are on track to provide a fiscal solvency plan. The county is especially concerned. There are some districts in the county that they have not adhered to this kind of advice, and so I believe that the county is going to be a little bit more aggressive in supporting districts to make reductions or adjustments earlier rather than later. We continually explain to them that we have enough reserves to be able to respond to shifts and changes in the budget, and that we will make the adjustments after they happen. We will not make them as a prediction. So that's what our conversation with them has been. And you'll get more of an update later with Ms. Kessler's presentation on the next budget. So thank you.
Thank you.
Would the board be able to get all that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Administrator comments?
Yeah, I would like to say that last week I was able to attend both the Thomas Edison and Fernando Rivera open houses, and I felt the turnout was really good. It's improved a lot over the years. It was really encouraging to see so many parents there. And the things that I really enjoy that Flat Stanley guy who goes around the world. That the kids are doing, the biographies, and some Picasso art that I saw there, which was really cool. And also I want to say that I was at a conference this morning about the state budget and everything, and one of the things that was said was that California is in 51st place, because we're including Puerto Rico, for counselor to pupil ratio. And this district has put so much into that in the last few years, into the social emotional learning and conflict resolution and the additional counselors that we have, that I don't believe we would fall into that category. So I am proud of the district for doing that, and let's hope that the budget will be good in the future years, and that we'll get more ongoing funds so that we can continue with that, because our students do need that.
Thank you.
Hey, so I went to the open house over at Policita. Not too much of a big surprise at this point, I guess. It was jam-packed. They did their awards night that they usually do, like the last days of school, and families really came. The band was playing, and it was a good way to, again, bring folks in, and then, did the traditional walkthrough and open house. So that was really fun to go see. And then last week we went to the Student of the Year. Most of you guys are there. It was wonderful. It's really nice to have that kind of positive contact and see families and just really recognizing the students in that environment. So it was very enjoyable. And thanks to all the teachers and folks that were able to make that happen.
So I was able to attend Ben Franklin and with Mr. Koo and Dr. Douglas. We got to see a cow's eye dissection. They were going to make ice cream and other things, and then we saw their garden. I listened in on the sixth grade orientation, talking about what to expect. So it was really a great turnout, lots of excitement, and so I just want to thank all the staff that made that a great event for families. And then just to remind elementary folks that the elementary open house is tomorrow night. And so check with your school sites to see what time. They're all between 5:30 to 7-ish. And we'll be all heading out to those in the next few days. And I've attended most of the things that you've all mentioned as well. This is a busy time of year.
Thank you. At this time, we move to persons wishing to address the board. And we don't have any at this time for the later portion of the meeting we do. So we will move on to our general functions. And for our consent agenda, there is a request to remove items 10A, 10C, and 10I. I'm going to rewind. I apologize. Persons wishing to address the board. We have 4. At this time, I will call on Amanda Overman. Is it Amanda Overman? 5th grade teacher at Susan B. Anthony, and her topic is salary and certificated personnel.
I'm really happy for the stool. Thank you. Hi. It really helps, though. Yeah, really, right? I already feel short compared to a lot of my students. Well, first, sorry for the clothes. I've been preparing for open house all day and cleaning. So this is my 3rd year teaching at SBA, and I absolutely love it. I came to you guys my 1st year of teaching, and I looked at the salary, and I asked for a salary that would keep me here. The 1st year was hard. I ended up starting a homework club with a fellow colleague, and I did that for my first 2 years, and I found that it was still very hard. This year, instead of doing homework club, I started tutoring math because I saw that was what our kids needed when we looked at the data. And it was still hard. So I also took on, I'm the tech integration specialist at our site, which has been wonderful, and I hope most of the back row of teachers here on a daily basis at any time they need. And it was still hard. And from the tech integration that I started at the school and that I really implemented in my class, I took another step further and I started a coding club. And by just around springtime, I realized that it just isn't enough. Unfortunately, this year is my last year, and I am leaving because I realized that as much as I love the school, the staff, and this community of families and students, and I'm so happy when I get a student whose older sibling I've had, I don't have a future here. I will never be able to buy a house. I will not be able to buy a car. I barely have a savings account. So unfortunately, I have to leave. And my colleagues asked me to come here and tell you that, so hopefully it could benefit them in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I call up our next speaker, I did want to say that this portion of our agenda is available for individuals to comment or address the board on any issue that is under the board's jurisdiction and not on the agenda, with the allotted time of 2 minutes. But we are not able to respond to you. But for those that are watching from home and who are here in attendance, we want to make sure that you know that you are heard. But we are not allowed to interact and engage in any conversation during public comment. But we thank you for your time and your input. And at this time, we'd like to call up Andres Huerta, 3rd grade student.
Good evening, my name is Andres Huerta, and I'm a 3rd grader at Susan B. Anthony Elementary School. One of our final requirements is that we write an opinion piece, and that is why I'm here to share with you today. I chose to write about the importance of fair pay for teachers, and I believe they deserve a raise. Our teachers' work days go beyond our 8:25 a.m. to 3 p.m. school days. Their long hours prepping for class and attending meetings all for the same pay. They also provide us with much-needed supplies and try to help our families when they aren't able to provide us with things for us. And just like many families, teachers too struggle to make ends meet. They deserve to earn enough money to live in the neighborhoods where they teach or anywhere else they want to live. Rent rises, product price rise, but wages stay the same. Teachers' responsibility to their students goes beyond just teaching them. They more recently have become our helpers, protectors, and heroes. Thank you for making us feel safe. I would like to thank you for your time, and I hope you take my words into consideration so my teachers can get a raise they need and deserve. My name, I'm Andres Huerta, and I approve this message.
Thank you, Mr. Huerta. We have now Shannon Schuler, a parent.
What grade is he in? No wonder.
Sorry, I had no idea Ms. Overman was leaving. And you did such a good job. My name is Shannon Schuler. I'm a registered voter, and I have 2 children at Susan B. Anthony, who just a couple weeks ago spent the night on San Bruno Mountain with the students, as they do every year and don't have to do that. They work hard all day long, all week long, all year long, not just from bell to bell. They spend time correcting papers after school, planning lessons over the weekend, attending required meetings over the summer, not to mention setting up classrooms with supplies paid for out of their own pockets. And nowadays we can add last line of defense against an active shooter to their job description. These teachers are dedicated to educating our children, our future community leaders and first responders, doctors and lawyers, artists and activists, and future voters. The least they should be able to expect is to be able to afford to live where they work and be able to provide for their families. This shouldn't even be up for debate. Find the funds and give these men and women a raise. Thank you.
Now we have Xenia, I'm sorry about this, is it Dietzler? Dietzler, thank you. And she is a teacher.
Good evening. My name is Xenia Diesler, and I am a 2nd grade teacher at Susan B. Anthony. I am here to speak about how the cost of living in the Bay Area continues to rise. Housing opportunities are very limited and cost is rising. Teachers want a quality life where they work and live. We want to be able to sustain ourselves and our families. We deserve an increase in our salary to be able to meet these needs. We would hate to lose good qualified teachers to another district or to leave the state. I hope you can find a respectable and creative solution so that it is a win-win solution for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker card is from Pamela DiGiovanni. Sorry, Pamela.
Good evening, President, Vice President, Honorable Board. It is kind of devastating to hear that a good teacher like that, and even I'm trying to hold back tears, because I already know that everybody's struggling with the public funds, but at the same point, please, as a community member, I don't want to hear that there's going to be an extraordinary raise and somebody's already going to make 6 figures or anything like that in the future, in the next meeting or in the future, when we have teachers that are the jewel of our community that used to be the respect when I grew up and still deserve the respect, that they deserve to at least be able to live here and not have to be moved, and they're being forced to move. It's not because they want to move, they're being forced to move. And then this is the heartbeat of our community, the schools are. That's why I come here. I'm a community member, but I could be home. I don't want to be home. You are the heartbeat. You're the heartbeat of our community. And when this starts to collapse and it's already starting to bleed by the teachers having to move, that is just the beginning of the bleeding. And when they're gone, we won't have a community. We won't have education. We won't have anything. It'll all be gone. So all the people making whatever they make, then they can go about and get their little retirement, but they won't have anything. And so we have to think about the future and maybe reprioritize things, or I know you're doing the best you can, but this is an emergency. It's an emergency at the city as well, but it's an emergency for families, because when they hear that, it's devastating, it's emotional, and then they have enough to worry about active shooters when they can't even have to worry about their teacher. That's devastating for a child. So thank you for your time, and I hope that this can be rectified and maybe we can get them back and stop the bleeding, because this is just the indication of the bleeding. I have a feeling. Thank you.
Thank you. We thank the public again for your input. And at this time, we will move on to general functions. And as mentioned, our consent agenda, there is a request to remove items 10A, 10C, and 10I from the consent agenda. Are there any other questions or items that anyone would like to reflect on or request to be removed? We have a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as modified.
Second the motion. Oops. We did it together. A duet.
We have a second.
Yes.
And roll call, please, Ms. Covere.
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela,
Aye.
Mr. Koo,
Aye.
Dr. Douglas,
Aye.
Miss Leah Inga Anawai.
Aye. Thank you. We will now move on to, we will now move on to our Personnel Commission annual 2017 annual report. The administration recommends the board accept the 2017 Personnel Commission Report. Education Code, Section 45266, requires an annual report to be prepared to the governing board outlining Personnel Commission activities. The 2017 annual report has been reviewed and approved by the Personnel Commission.
He's stepping strong. All right. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you taking the time to hear the Personnel Commission report for 2017. I want to recognize my colleagues from the Personnel Commission, Commissioner Mr. Ron Appel, longtime Commissioner representing the board, as well as Ms. Sonia Reyes, who's been nominated by the two other Personnel Commission members, and she's currently our chair, and Mr. Appel, our vice chair. So I'd like to recognize them while they're here and thank you for your support. Some people might not know what the Personnel Commission is. We do work. We meet monthly. We do, is it just one button here? There we go. And our goals, just focusing on communicating regularly with the governing board regarding Personnel Commission activities, like I mentioned, at least once a year, and that's where we are today. The focus really is to apply the Personnel Commission rules and regulations fairly. There's something here I just wanted to point out in terms of what the guidelines for the Personnel Commission are. I think it kind of focuses real clearly on what we're about. To hire and promote employees on the basis of ability, provide fair compensation, to retain employees on the basis of performance, to train employees as needed for high-quality performance, and to assure fair treatment of applicants and employees in all aspects of personnel administration. So I think that speaks to that. Also, of course, to maintaining efficient personnel operations and trying to improve recruitment and selection systems based on merit principles. It's been difficult. The economy's real good. There's lots of folks looking for work out there, so we've got to be creative. To assess staff development needs and coordinate opportunities for all classifications to participate in professional development. To organize and monitor the employee performance evaluation system to make sure it's done fairly and regularly. Maintain an effective classification plan and efficient personnel operations. And to review and revise one major section of the rules and regulations. Some of you, again, may not know, we do have the rules and regulations of the Personnel Commission, which goes hand in hand with the contract for the CSCA employees. And there's a lot of things in it that are not in the contract and vice versa. So when making decisions, you really need to look at both of those in balance. Just some highlights. As I mentioned, Ms. Sonia Reyes is currently, she's the representative appointed by the commissioners, and she's currently our chairperson. Mr. Ron Appel, who represents the Board of Education on the commission, serves currently as our vice chairperson. And Mr. Dennis Shreve, he's continued to serve as CSCA's representative on the commission. Mr. Shreve, Mr. Appel, and Ms. Reyes participated in professional development workshops at the CSPCA, the California School Personnel Commission Association's annual conference in February of 2018. I was not able to attend this year's conference down in San Diego. And we went on a little road tour together and met with the classified staffs at Thomas R. Policita, Susan B. Anthony, and John F. Kennedy during our commission site visits back in March. We do that every year. It's good. Some other highlights. Currently, our district employs 259 regular classified staff. Exams were given for 15 different classifications. And I just want to give kudos to my colleagues, Lisa Sue and Clorinda Lauderdale, and all their help in getting folks to be on those interview panels and handling all the testing, which is a lot of hard work, and they've done great with it. We've really pushed the increase of the electronic application and testing procedures to make it more efficient. Sometimes it can take as long as 3 weeks from beginning to end just to get an eligibility list together. And oftentimes folks that begin that process do not finish that process, and in some cases we have to start right over again. Last year we had 7 employees that were promoted to positions with higher pay. 4 employees had increased in work hours. 11 employees worked out of classification to cover leaves due to illness, workers' compensation, or vacations, and 7 employees retired. Board members, that was what I ran off here to check on yours. It was a mistake, as you'll notice, so these are the proper numbers that I put there.
I was just going to say that.
I wanted to beat you to it. That's why I ran over that.
Yeah, I said,
I'll get you the fixed version ASAP.
That's okay. This is fine.
For the areas of professional development, classified employees have had an opportunity for professional development in a wide array of areas. It really depends on their classification. But mostly I wanted to focus on the ones in general: the safety, injury, and illness prevention, to make sure they're healthy in the workplace; professional behavior in the workplace to ensure good community spirit; child abuse reporting, because all of us are mandated reporters; English language development instruction for those folks that are working more in the instructional component as instructional aides or techs; positive behavior classroom management strategies. That's something we're all participating in, and restorative processes. Also working to build their understanding of the Common Core standards, because they're working directly with our students just like our teachers and other site folks are. And supporting special needs students. We have a lot of special circumstance instructional aides that work with a wide variety of students with needs, and they need the support to both help the students in an academic way, but also to make sure that student can move through the school and be an active member of that community. And also being involved in our after-schools activities. They are our key folks that work all the EDC, ACEs, and all those after-school programs that we depend on, our families depend on. As I mentioned before, we really depend on folks to be on our interview panels. As part of the rules, we always have to have somebody that's not a member of the district, so we have retired employees come back, and folks from other districts and other capacities. So folks in the city of Daly City Park and Rec, Jefferson Union High School District, and the rest. I'll leave that for everyone. They come in regularly. They come. They do the interviews. They engage with our folks, give us recommendations about how to improve the process. So I just really want to give all those folks that help us all the time kudos. And just as one other acknowledgement, in an effort to be proactive and always have eligibility lists available when vacancies arise, instead of waiting for vacancies to arrive and then test, we've made an incredible effort, and I brought this up a number of times to the Personnel Commission themselves, at keeping ongoing testing. Even if we have an eligibility list up there, we'll test again, because, for example, in special circumstance instructional aides, that's a really growing classification. And folks, not only people through attrition or if things don't work out, we always need to have that. And if we have to wait 2 or 3 weeks, put a substitute in there or leave a vacancy, that's just not okay. So I think that's one of the biggest initiatives we've been pushing on. And again, Clorinda and Lisa Sue, because they're the ones that are doing all that groundwork, are really making this happen. So I wanted to thank them. They're not up there right now. So those are just some of the highlights I had through my experience last year. And again, I want to thank you and entertain any questions that you might have.
Do we have any questions from the board?
I just wanted to ask one question. when you ask all these different agencies to come, do you ever find that they know the applicants?
In terms of like, to prevent a conflict of interest of sorts?
Yeah, because at one time we never, when I was involved in it.
Sure.
They would have to excuse themselves because you can't have someone that they know. Perhaps they worked with them before, or they knew their uncle, or what, some situation where it becomes not what the merit system would like to have. But have you found that at all?
To my experience, no. I'm going to be honest. You know, we've had some folks that have been in this district for some time that are also members of those interview panels, former secretaries, and I'm sure they may have come across some of the folks. But in terms of it ever becoming an issue, or ever, in my knowledge, it hasn't. I think it is something, though, that, you know, both with Clarinda and Lisa, they really try to keep that process clean and on the straight and narrow, and really go above and beyond to make sure we avoid any conflicts in that regard, because we really want to stick to the.
It happened to me one time when I went for an interview.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. They had to say they can't do that. So I just wanted to know if we were still doing that.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all. Anyone else? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is an action item, so since we have no other questions or comments, I'd like to see if there's a...
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the Personnel Commission's annual report for 2017-18 as submitted.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And thank you to our personnel commissioners for joining us this evening.
Very much.
Tuesday at 4.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Valenti. And at this time, we have our Big Lift update. Jefferson Elementary School District is in its third year of implementing the Big Lift initiative. Andrea Jones, Initiative Officer of Silicon Valley Community Foundation, and Marco Chavez, Administrator at San Mateo County Office of Education, will present highlights of the county-wide initiative, accomplishments at the local district level, and plans for the Big Lift moving forward. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and good evening, President, Board President, trustees, administrators, and members of the public. Thank you for the opportunity to share some of the highlights of the Big Lift. Our intent this evening, as we engage in presenting to several boards in our Big Lift districts, is to continue to build relationships with our communities that have the Big Lift. And so I will share some of the broader accomplishments, and then Andrea here will talk about specifically to Jefferson Elementary School District. But we'll first start with a video of the Big Lift because it really highlights the Inspiring Summers program. And more specific, it really highlights the Daly City community. So we wanted to share this with you.
Yes, this was filmed in Jefferson Elementary School District last summer. Yeah, thanks, Amy.
When I grow up, I want to be a teacher, a ballerina, a doctor. I want to be a fireman, an artist. I can be anything I want to be. My favorite thing about school is having new friends. My favorite is Oreos and apple juice. I know a couple different languages. I like doing math. 100 plus 100 makes 200. I know that dinosaurs lived in the desert a long time ago. My favorite thing to learn is stories. My favorite books are sharks. I like doing yoga at school because it feels good. I like being here at school. It helped us get ready. I'm excited to go to the Big Lift.
So we're done. No. So, as the video showcases, one of the reasons why we embarked on the Big Lift work is, and 3 leading agencies are leading this work: the County of San Mateo, the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, and the San Mateo County Office of Education. And the reasons are stated in this slide here, that that only 51% of our entering kindergarten students were entering kindergarten ready. So we had to do something about it. And additional to that, that only 55% of our 3rd graders were reading proficiently at 3rd grade. And that number is even higher for students of color and students that live in poverty. So our goal as a Big Lift is to increase that proficiency percentage to 80%. This slide shares the story of the Big Lift by numbers. Currently, like I shared, there's several districts, 7 to be exact, districts that are on the Big Lift. Jefferson Elementary is one of the first school districts that began to implement the Big Lift, so we're very proud of the work here. Currently about 5,000 students have received 1 or more of these interventions since 2014. And then each year, oh, the slide didn't transfer very well. So there are 4 pillars in the Big Lift. The high quality preschool, and currently we're serving about 2,000 students in preschool across the county, and about 1,300 are participating in our Inspiring Summers program. And then in family engagement, providing about 2,000 families have received training, more specifically around the Reading Plus program. And then 7,600 students have received targeted messaging in an effort to decrease chronic absenteeism across our county. And so Inspiring Summers is in full, registration is in full swing. Andrea's going to share a little bit about the numbers for Jefferson Elementary, but this summer we'll continue to work with our county libraries to implement the STEM portion of the instructional day during the summer, and our Bell program to focus on the literacy part of the instructional day during the summer. Data collection and analyzing data is very important to the project. We've partnered with RAND Corporation, and some of the studies that have surfaced from this data collection is that Big Lift students scored higher, about 27 percentage points, on kindergarten readiness than demographically similar children who did not attend preschool. Kids who participate in the Big Lift Summer Program experience a net 3.5 reading gain. We often hear of the reading of the slide in the summer. With the students that are participating in the program, they're actually increasing and growing, which is exciting to see. And then 50% increase in the amount of time that parents are engaging with students in books. So we're very excited about those results as well. And then 15% reduction of absenteeism. And so the focus of the families that we're working with is families that have this profile, that often live in poverty, that represent our community demographics. Again, this is for the entire county. The demographics specifically for Daly City represent the community. And families of parents that have high school or less education, and English learners, high percentage of English learners. So with that, now Andrea will share with you some specifics around Jefferson Elementary School District.
Great. Thank you, Marco, and thank you for having us here tonight. It's great to be out in the communities that we're serving. So Jefferson Elementary wanted to bring attention to some of the team members that play a large role: Sandy McCulloch, Lisa Zamiga, Jennifer LaRoque, and there are many others are doing a really fantastic job. So These are your participant demographics from one of the largest school districts that we're working with in the Big Lift. You have 433 children in preschool. About 60 of those are fully funded Big Lift spaces, full day, and then the rest are part day enhanced spaces, which means they're getting primarily quality improvements, lots of coaching and professional development. Inspiring Summers. Last year you served 458 children in kindergarten through second grade. This year we won't be able to serve as many because, as you all know, we lost federal funding. Attendance in TK through second, it's just over 2,300 students. In addition, all of your preschool children are getting receiving targeted attendance messaging as well. And then in Raising a Reader Plus, 285 of the 433 preschool families parents have attended at least one workshop. So as you see, this is a pretty, it's a large impact here in Jefferson. So a little bit of a snapshot for Jefferson, and this is from the 2016 Brigance Kindergarten Readiness Assessment. It's actually scored higher than what we're seeing on average, which is 57% of incoming kindergartners in Big Lift preschool were kindergarten ready. It was a great place to start from. We are waiting on the final fall data from 2017. 100% of your preschool sites improved on at least one element of quality. There are quite a few. There's classroom environment, there's teacher-child interaction, and others. And every single preschool saw improvement in at least one. Many saw more than one. And then 73% of preschool children received developmental screenings. It's a huge improvement from the 2015-16 year, which was 36%. Our goal is that 100% of all children will receive screenings. This is your summer snapshot. So in both summers 2016 and 2017, not only your children did not drop back 2 months, but they gained a month. The 3.5 months is actually overall for the entire county. So you guys were a little bit lower, but there's nothing, still an amazing job, especially to see it 2 years in a row. And we expect to see the same results, if not better, this year. For 2018 enrollment, you have 385 spots, and you are completely full. In fact, you have around 475 applications. I think it goes to show there is tremendous need in this county, and at this point, we're not even fully meeting the need. Now, you guys have also expanded to do 3rd through, I think, 8th grade, right, on your own, which is wonderful. So it's great to see that happening. And then 70% of the children are returning BLISS students, Inspiring Summers, and or they have attended Big Lift preschool. And that is really our goal, is to work with children year over year. So we're starting to really see that, which is great. Let me see. So we wanted to talk about next steps, sustainability. Our goal, the premise of the Big Lift, is not to have it go away after the proof of concept phase. The idea is to keep this going for, honestly, generations to come. But that is going to take long-term funding, sustainability, and that is what we're working on right now. So I'm turning it over to Marco here to wrap us up with a lot of action.
So this is a call to action.
Yeah.
So in terms of building relationships and continuing to engage our communities on the successes of the Big Lift, it will lead to towards that sustainability. There may be an opportunity to generate funds countywide or maybe from the state, and this is where we need to all be highlighting and speaking positively, or speaking to the positive impact that the Big Lift is having on our students. So we invite you to engage in our community at the local and state level as elected leaders. And finally, we would just want to thank our district leadership team, as well as all of the agencies in Daly City that have vested a lot of time and resources towards the families of Jefferson Elementary School District. So with that, thank you very much, and we're happy to answer any questions. So lift with us, and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Floor is open for the board. If you have any questions, comments.
On page number 2 on this document, the slide that talks about the Big Lift wants all our kids to get the right start. I actually had a question about the last part where it says our goal, close the opportunity gap so 80% read proficiently by 3rd grade. The question that I had is, what is the timeline for that, and who is holding the accountability for that?
So originally, there was conversation about we should have a specific deadline by which we want to accomplish this. Then, as we engaged with data analyzing and developing and really working towards proving that this concept and that these 4 pillars are the right pillars to engage in all of our resources. That's why Andrea talked about the proof of concept phase. So we want to complete that proof of concept phase and engaging all of our resources with these 4 pillars. And then after that, once we say this is the exact area we want to focus on, then I think at that point we can say, okay, by a certain amount of time, we've grown at this pace, so by a certain amount of time, we should reach that 80%. Mm-hmm. That's kind of how I've organized it in my head personally. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we definitely have talked about that specific timeline. Okay, and in terms of accountability, certainly the 3 agencies that are leading the work are very much holding each other accountable, as well as with the reports and data that is being collected through RAND and locally. We're certainly holding ourselves accountable there. And some of the funding that we currently have, there's some accountability that goes along with that. Mm-hmm. So
that's partly why I was asking, because it's good to have a high goal, 80%. Yeah. But then it has to be realistic, and we're talking about SMART goals. So the question that I had was, okay, as we're trying to close that gap, and if it doesn't close, will the initiative continue? So it sounds like you're talking about sustainable funding, so that seems to me that it would continue. But if there's no time limit put on it, I was just confused about how it's going to continue, who's going to continue it. But I think you're kind of answering that question right now. So
80% is an ambitious goal. Mm-hmm. I think the original idea was within the 5-year proof of concept phase. But okay. Now, as you get into it, you start to understand how the different interventions work and where we need to improve. And to Marco's point, seeing that we are actually making progress with individual districts. We're starting now to meet with districts and work with them on areas of strength and areas of improvement, and then just a continual cycle of inquiry and improvement to get where we want to go. So we have the sustainable funding.
Okay, sounds great. I don't have any other questions, but just thanks. We mentioned this before, that our district was very happy that we were chosen to, participate in this, and we definitely value giving our students as much, equipping them for success. And I would like to see somehow this expand beyond 3rd grade, and that we wouldn't have to put our own money into it. I know that's ambitious on my part, but that's just what I would like to see as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you haven't done so, I invite you during the summer program, come out and visit the program and bring local officials to see it. It's a great place to start.
And actually, I forgot to mention, we had a very sizable funding gap for the last 2 years of the proof of concept phase, and we have a verbal commitment from the county to close the gap for next year. And in June, next month, we will be going to the Board of Supervisors to have that approved formally. And if there is a chance or an opportunity for advocacy in those moments, we will definitely let you know and be
definitely. Mm-hmm. I always like to go down there and ask for more.
We need you.
So I just want to say I was thrilled about this program coming out, and as you're doing the program and you see the results with some of the a lot of the children, does it give you that ambition to add more to it, to make it even more successful, so that everyone in it is going to go up kind of like together? Or do you find it's easier as you see how it progresses?
Certainly at the county level, we know that we've expanded from the 4 original districts to 7 districts. Mm-hmm. And those are our cohort 2 districts. And certainly there are some other communities, other districts that are interested in it. and that have similar demographics and similar needs. However, we, given the amount of resources that we have, we want to be responsible. But in making sure that the districts that are currently implementing, that they get as much support, all of the support that they need. Having said that, yes, so to answer your question, yes, we do want to expand, but we need to make sure that we have the resources.
Being a little selfish, I want to see us expanding it so it's not only 80%.
Got it.
That it would be 100%. That's what I'm saying. If you're finding ways or thinking of ways to make it so that all our children, I've always been a component that all children can learn, and what more do we need to make it happen so we don't leave anybody behind, is what I'm saying. Because you're working close to them. So.
Yeah, one of the learnings for me specifically is that districts like Jefferson Elementary, where you have very engaged leadership and a very engaged community, our community Daly City partnership, and that you're seeing those much larger gains, and you see that there is investment from the district to add additional summer school spaces, and certainly that speaks to the district beyond the big lift, which is exciting.
Thank you.
And the power we see in the county, we get to go into all the districts and see what you're doing, and being able to take the best practices from, a district like Jefferson and apply that and encourage that, I should say, in other districts.
Oh, that sounds good too.
It inspires me.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Have any other comments or reflections?
I had a question, just because I'm looking at the, kindergartners being kindergarten ready, and I'm thinking back to when I was a kid, and kindergarten was where you went to get ready to go to school.
Yeah.
What, just so that people kind of know, what, in a quick summary, do we mean by kindergarten ready? What are we expecting of children that they weren't back when I was 5? Which I admit was a long time ago.
The kindergarten readiness assessment that we use now, which was superintendents all came together to choose it, and we looked at it with teachers too, it mainly focuses on academics. So the letters, numbers, shapes, there's some gross motor skills. I would say personally that the piece we're missing is social emotional learning, which is one of the very most important things in entering school, and we are now starting to look at how could we add that without overburdening teachers in doing the assessment.
So we really are asking students to be coming into kindergarten with the skills that my generation learned in kindergarten. My personal feeling is that we probably should prioritize that social emotional part over learning letters and numbers at age 4. But that's my opinion. And I just, from an awareness of how vitally important those skills are.
And just to add, that our preschools are doing some work around social and emotional.
Good,
Yeah, they are doing that. What I think to Andrea's point is that assessment, the kindergarten readiness assessment, is we don't have a tool that we've agreed on yet. But the social emotional is definitely a priority in preschools.
Yeah, and we would like to measure it because it is, I think, more important. In many ways.
Trustee Coop.
I just want to say thanks for the presentation, and I know that you guys are dealing with financial funding for the next couple of years, but I hope we can somehow find a way to help you guys out, to make sure that you guys are adequately funded.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have another question, Trustee Pursuela?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Rebecca said. I had 4 children, and the difference between and they're only 7 years apart, but from the difference from the oldest going to kindergarten to the youngest one had to take a test. And I thought, what, a test for kindergarten? And the oldest one, it was mostly play and learning some things. But so I think starting from then and now what you guys are doing is that we're really getting them ready. If your child didn't go to preschool, then they are far behind because they haven't had that opportunity. And I'm looking at our preschool people, one of our teachers back there, and I know that I was working in South City in a preschool setting, and we do teach them a whole lot more now than what they did before. And a lot of it is engaging how to work together and play together. So I think we're all on the same track of trying to get them, but there's still some of those children that haven't had that opportunity. And if we can identify them and be sure that we help them also, they'll catch up, I'm sure, because kids learn fast if the other kids are doing it. So, but thank you. I just didn't mean to expand it, but I knew what she was talking about.
Say something. Yeah, I also had the same thought though, and I didn't ask, but that I had the thought too of how are we assessing their readiness? And but looking at this and listening, I just kind of want to ask: is the focus during that summer? Now I need to go see it for myself. But are they? Is it focused mainly on the books and reading?
It's some of both. So it's the morning is taught by credentialed teachers, and it's a literacy, but really fun and hands-on, and lots of movement, lots of reading. And then the afternoon is taught by the San Mateo County Libraries, and they hire college-age students, and that is a STEM-focused, again, hands-on enriching, developed by the Bay Area Discovery Museum curriculum. It's full day.
The reason why I was asking though, because I think that when she said academics, I don't think that it's anything too high level. I was hoping that it's just mainly focusing on the word gap, because we've talked a lot about how students who, unfortunately, if their parents aren't reading to them and they don't have a lot of opportunities to increase their vocabulary, I'm thinking this is a good, fills that void. So, but I also agree with you too that if their social emotional needs aren't being met, they're not going to be ready to learn academics. So, yeah, so that's,
I would highly, yeah.
as our district always does. That's great.
I would highly encourage you all to go out to one of the Inspiring Summer sites. It's an incredible program. Jefferson is doing such a good job. It is, I think, actually, Bernie, you get quoted frequently that you said somewhere along the line that you wanted Inspiring Summers to be the best summer camp experience that any child could have.
A place that he would send his child.
Own child.
There you go.
See, you get quoted. It's part of the lore of the Big Lift. I think that's what that has been the mission and the vision, and it brings tears to my eyes every time I get to go into the and so I would, get out there this summer.
Hopefully.
Yeah, well, we thank you both for coming here and sharing what Big Lift does. As you both know, my day job with Head Start, and we're a beneficiary of Big Lift, and we know the great work that you do, and we are very thankful, one, to be the first recipient of Big Lift, Big Lift's love and program, and to continue to be part of Big Lift. I think we're very, very fortunate, and now that it's expanding, I love that we can continue to see it here in our district. So, we are here, we are your partners through this, so should the need arise, we want to see what we can do to ensure that it continues to grow here at JESD. So thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it.
And now we will move on to E, selection of firm to conduct workforce housing project and construction management on behalf of JESD. And the governance team will discuss proposals and make a selection of a firm to represent the district in the project and construction management phases of the workforce housing development. A final contract with the selected firm authorizing work will be presented for board approval at a future meeting. So we will now open this up for discussion.
Yeah, so at our last meeting, the board did receive 2 presentations from 2 firms who were asked to present on their work and what they can offer the district, and the vote for the selection was postponed until today, and hopefully, if you were not here, you had an opportunity to review their presentations. They're not here to answer questions, but they, as they were the last time. But Brookwood Advisors did send us something just yesterday afternoon on bridging, so I want to pass that out to the board to have.
Thank you. Are there any other updates, Superintendent Vidalis, outside of the bridging handout from any of the firms?
No, not at this moment.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other items for discussion from any of the board regarding the proposals that we have received?
Well, I want to clarify, is
the Brookwood advisors have been really pushing on the bridging, but it is my understanding that if that is an approach that either company can take with us, if that's what we end up wanting to do. Yeah.
Yes, as Mr. Kramer and Ralph Caputo indicated, they would help us select the best method for our district. And I would like to point out in the letter that you received, the other firm is Brookwood is also offering to do the design bid build if we wanted to, but it would add an extra cost because it does require more oversight.
So either firm can go either way on that, basically.
Correct. I can't speak 100%. For instance, if we decided to do lease back, I don't know if, I know that RGM would be able to do that. I'm not sure if the other one would, but I just don't know that.
Thank you, Ms. Kessler. Do we have any other comments or questions from any other board trustees?
The only comment I would make, since you and Trustee Brizuela weren't here, so that's why we asked for more time and to be able to discuss this and deliberate with you here. But there was a lingering question in my mind that I want to ask to Ms. Kessler, which is, are we happy with RGM? And if we are, does this make any sense to be asking them for another, agency to present a proposal?
Okay, I can give you my opinion. We are happy with RGM. Well, I'm happy with RGM. I would want Mr. Vidalis and Mr. Heath to weigh in on their opinions because they are very heavily involved in that as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank the board for allowing, I'm glad, I'm sure Ms. Brizuela is too, that we're able to be a part of this process. So if we have Ms. Brizuela, since you weren't here either, do you have a question or something you'd like to add?
I wish I was here because this was very overwhelming, and I always like to see the people that are behind it, not just the documents. But I'll go with whatever the board decides, but I always like to see the people involved because that is important to me too. What do I feel about the trust that we have in them? Mm-hmm. Looking at paper, it's like looking at a resume. You're really not sure it's a resume. So I just wish I was there, but unfortunately I couldn't be there. So it's just sort of just a lot of paperwork to me right now. And I went through it all, did it twice. I tried to look at the listening to that tape was like a killer when I was listening to the tape of the last meeting. This was way too long. But I'm just not sure about everything. Both looks good, but like I said, I just don't feel the trust. So I'm going to rely on some of the things that you guys saw if you want to share anything with me.
I did have an opportunity to see it on YouTube, and while I wasn't able to view the presenters, I can relate to what you're saying. It is a different vibe to be able to see the presenters in person, but I feel confident from watching the YouTube presentation that it gave me a sense of direction to where I would like to vote on tonight. But with that said, I'm sorry that it wasn't positive of experience. But
I just felt like I like to see.
Agreed.
Yeah. But at the same time, I see all this stuff, but I'm wondering if you guys could share a little bit about your feeling about what you saw and how did you feel, because it's important that you have a trust. Right. That's always my thing, is the trust.
Well, I can speak to that if it's appropriate. That's kind of why I asked my question, because I had a good feeling about RGM. I like the work that they've done so far, Policita, and the other agency or company. I don't know, I just felt awkward. I just didn't really understand all the way why they were here, and it seemed like it was they didn't have any vested interest locally in our community, but they probably can do a great job, you know, but RGM is already here and they're working with us, so that's how I felt that I trusted them.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I could sort of second what Mr. Ali says, that I had a strong feeling either company is entirely capable of doing the work and doing it well. I was struck by the fact that RGM, not only have they worked with us, but they have a much larger portfolio of school projects. Brookwood National, they've got a lot of projects, but they've not worked as much with schools. They haven't worked with us. So my inclination and sort of the feeling I had was, like Mr. Ali, was to stick with the ones we know, and that they actually are the ones who have that really specific experience that we may need to make it work best, both in our community and on our kind of project. So that was my gut.
Okay. So that leads me to my next question. Did we find that some of the stuff that was being done at policy that wasn't getting done on time? I think I recall that.
You can answer.
Okay.
You can answer.
I'm not in trouble. That's okay.
That is correct. RGM wasn't the general contractor or the contractor on the job. RGM is not allowed to pick up a hammer because they're acting as agents. So it is like the ones who the job was awarded to, and I cannot say that if it was awarded to any other company that they would have done any better or any worse in timing on that. So another thing there is that was a multi-prime job, and a multi-prime job means that we oversee all the contracts as opposed to a single prime where you have just a general contractor. And so only one contractor is responsible for the work instead of multi, and the multi-prime delivery method does require a lot more oversight because you've got to coordinate everybody. And if somebody doesn't show up or whatever, but that is true. It was not done on time. I cannot say that was RGM's fault.
Because when I compare our building Susan B. Anthony, I think I was the only one around at that time, I think.
I wasn't here then.
No, I know, but it was done exactly on time.
Was it
if
a
not sooner.
or a single prime, multi-prime, do you don't know?
No, it was done.
Right, I'm just trying to, I don't know what delivery it was, but.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing anything you said. What was the last thing you said?
I said, I don't know what delivery method they used.
Oh, no, I'm just saying
That's
is, we said we wanted it open, completely done by September, and it was done, and we were actually surprised that they got it done so soon. So I'm just saying, I want to be sure, because that's a little trust thing here about me, is that, or are we going to have that kind of a feeling that we want that project done so that if it is, that it's going to be finished, it'll be done. That's all. Just asking the question.
And I can't tell you if it would be or not. I can tell you that it is very hard to get contractors of any kind. That's why one thing was pulled off the agenda, because there were no bids.
Is there a way though to incorporate that when the deadlines aren't, isn't there a way to incorporate something into the contract if deadlines aren't met?
Yes.
If there's fees or something like that, I mean.
There is.
Yes, we do have that as part of all of our contracts.
You have that in place.
But we didn't get to the stage where there were fines. Yeah, they all were performed with before we got to that stage. Ms. Kessler did mention, the job market right now is really active for builders and people in the trades. They accept multiple jobs, and then they juggle them as they try to complete them all. And it keeps their people busy, which is great for them. They, but yeah, I think we have to accept an acceptable delay. We partially with the TR Policita project, we did switch in the middle. We had one of the wettest, rainiest seasons that delayed a lot of work. And I think other than that, the other stuff was minor. But we were responsible for a big part of that delay in switching firms. And then Mother Nature was responsible for another couple of months of providing us with one of the wettest years we've had in many years.
So, because when we had rains also for Susan B. Anthony, but they worked weekends and all, they made sure they made the deadline. I'm just saying.
Sometimes no, I understand that, yeah.
And then they would have to pay.
Yeah.
Us,
I don't know what the economy was like back then, if it was like, well, actually, it probably wasn't very full economy. That wasn't, if that was like anywhere close to 2007, 8,
it was 90.
But
I'm not sure when it was.
it's good to know that there are measures in place to address those issues should they arise.
We didn't reach the stage of fines.
Sure.
I asked a question about that. But on the other side, I mean, I know that some construction projects, the company might get a bonus if they finish early or something like that. Do we offer that in our contracts?
We do not.
No.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that would be legal.
Yeah, no, I'm just
I would have to look into even if we could, because we have to go with the lowest bidder.
Probably the closest approximation to that is when you do a leaseback and you have a fixed price, and they estimate it's going to take a year and a half, and they're done in a year. They get essentially 6 months free.
They get the same money.
They get the same money, and because they finish the job. So that's the closest approximation to a bonus. But most of the stuff we just pay for as the job is completed. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
We should get a bonus with the school. Anyway.
So,
okay, I just wanted to check those things.
So if we don't have any further questions or further discussion, I'd like to request for a motion.
and I think I would make the motion that we offer the contract to RGM Kramer.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Is this roll call or is it roll call
voice
item?
vote
or-
is fine.
No? Okay. So it's unanimous.
Oh, wait,
Thank you.
You didn't
Aye.
answer before I said yes.
Oh, I thought you heard a
Yes.
hi. I would like to apologize for the inconvenience, but I would like to request a 2-minute quick recess, if that would be okay. Thank you. Sorry, I apologize.
We'll send our TB ward out for medication.
Shaquille can fight for that spot.
Quit talking, go.
He's got a pile. His pile's getting pretty small, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, really, we should send Clayton home to go to bed with a cup of hot tea and honey.
Do you have hot water by chance?
I'm the only viewer right now. I do. Yeah, it's really one viewer. Oh, really? Yeah.
So you're saying he could go home and finish what? Right, what else is there?
There's the,
Right.
okay.
I'm sure it bothers him, but yeah.
We are back. We are now looking at local control accountability plan updates. The LCAP is an accountability plan that requires districts to disclose how local control funding formula funds are spent to provide high-quality education programs. Jefferson Elementary School District Administration will share updates of the current draft of the 2018-19 plan based on stakeholder input, including the LCAP draft approval from the Parent Involvement Advisory Committee and District English Language Advisory Committee. Thank you, Ms. McCulloch.
Thank you. So tonight, we come to you with a draft of the Local Control Accountability Plan. It is a whopping 174 pages. It's a little bit longer than the previous years because they changed the template for the 4th time in a row, and this template is not, you can't fiddle with it. So it has extended the, I put one on your table. It might be buried somewhere there.
Okay, you want here, you can have mine.
Yeah, I laid it on your stuff, sorry.
Superintendent Fidelis.
We all set? All right. So I did not print a copy for you because it would, I wanted to save a tree. A lot of the plan is redundant, so I'm just going to give you some highlights. This is still draft form. We'll bring a final draft at the next meeting in June because the county is working alongside us to help us make sure that we have an approved plan, and so there's just some wordsmithing a lot of times that we have to tweak. But just to remind you of the process, you've seen this slide every time I do a presentation on the LCAP, but just to let you know where we are now, you can see we're in May. We brought this draft that you have on the agenda back up to the Parent Involvement Advisory Committee and District English Language Advisory Committee. We did a joint meeting, and Mr. Koo mentioned it in his, and then Dr. Douglas was there as well. And we also have Representative Elaine Francisco from our PF meeting to all attest that this was approved by this group. And so I want to just share with you what I shared with them and some of the highlights about what's in this plan. And then, like I said, in June, 2 meetings will be sharing the final draft. So the June 13th meeting is when we bring the draft for public hearing, and then also that's when the budget is shared, and then the final meeting in June is when you actually approve it. And then we have to submit it to the county in July. So to get us to this point, we had many stakeholder meetings, and so our main stakeholder meeting groups include the instructional leadership team, and we had a joint session where we invited parent leaders to this meeting in March, and so every site had teacher leaders, parent leaders, and we had our district coaches and administrators as well, and we really just looked at our plan, all the actions that we plan to do, what actually happened, and then we asked for input. Should we keep, edit, stop, or add? We did the same thing with our Parent Involvement Advisory Committee a little earlier in February, and I mentioned earlier in the family engagement presentation that we looked at the PTA national standards on family engagement, and so those were incorporated in. And then we also, soon after the instructional leadership team meeting, that very next week, we had the American Federation of Teachers, the Teachers Union, and our California School Employees Association, our Classified Employee Union, a joint session on March 26th, where they looked at, it was pretty much a road show. I had these posters up with all of our actions, and so they also added to it, and that gave us some input as to what we need to go back to the broader community. So really 3 things stood out that we wanted to go back to the broader community about to get their input, because a lot of the questions was either clarifying language, keep most of the actions, just adjust some of the language. But there were 3 areas that we said, oh, we better go out to the community. So we did a survey. We didn't get a great response on the survey, which sometimes that's a good thing because that means people are okay with the way things are going. Not sure if that's what this means or not. But you can see we did have a good range of different roles. We had certificated staff, classified staff, management, parent and family. We even have students. They're almost a quarter. And then we had community members, and then there was another category, so some parents added in there. And so we asked 3 questions. One of the questions was about counseling. A lot of folks were interested in adding more counseling. It was mentioned earlier tonight, and so sites have discretionary funds to. Not all sites need more counseling, and so we asked, should we urge sites to prioritize their discretionary funds to add additional support if that was something the site needed, and it was 77% said yes of the people that responded to the survey. And then that is related to Action 1.211 in case you want to refer it to the LCAP. The other question we had was about our elementary PE program, and there was a sentiment that we might want to eliminate the teacher leaders of the elementary program and kind of do an alternative way to support these programs at the site. Continue the program, but who's going to do the oversight? And so that was also a resounding yes, let's look at alternative ways. And then that's Action 1.2.6. And then the last question related to our special education services, and that several of our sites have a lot of special education students at their school site, and so teachers need to attend individualized education plans or IEP team meetings. And so saying, should we have sites use site funds to get subs so that they're not having to stay after school for all these meetings, and only when possible though, because of course the parent is an important part of the team. So if the parent is able to come during the school day, can we encourage sites to use their site funds to get subs? And that was also a resounding yes. Question?
I kind of missed what you were saying. Why did you end up, you said why you had to ask these 3 questions?
When we had the posters up of all the actions we plan to do for this school year, and then what we actually did, and then we said, is this action effective? I didn't mention that earlier, actually. Okay. Is this action effective, on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being least effective, 5 being most effective? And then how do you know? So what evidence do you have? And so then we had them write that, and then we had everyone walk around with the dots. I don't know if you've heard about the dots, but put a dot on the ones that you think we should revise, which actions we should revise, and which actions we should omit.
Okay.
And so there were a couple actions that had a lot of dots, and these are the 3 that had a lot of dots.
All right.
And I did not mention that earlier, so that's why you didn't know.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for asking. So we have 32 new actions that made its way into this year's LCAP and 16 revised actions based on that feedback. And so here are just some highlights of what's new. We've been working alongside the county, and they were saying you need to add in all the actions that you're doing. We were just kind of doing all of our additional actions that come from the supplemental and concentration grant funds, and they were saying, oh no, you need to add in everything that your operational costs are. So that's in here too. You can see the second bullet, existing general operations actions. I didn't even put myself in the LCAP, my position, and so they're saying you need to put everybody in. Business office. So those are a lot of the new actions. They're not new, we're just stating them in the LCAP. The very first one, you approved the educational technology plan a couple meetings ago, and there were recommended actions in there, so those are included. A lot of those actions are just practices and strategies, don't have a lot of funding that's related to it. It's just, and a lot of it we're already doing, it's just explicitly stating it in our plan. And then the 4 community engagement actions you saw earlier, those are included. Those 3 questions that you just saw a moment ago are revised in the actions. And then also, remember a couple meetings ago we talked about restructuring our educational services department, making sure that we have integrated services with academic and behavior. And so those changed positions, those changed some of our structure, and so we revised those actions that related to those positions and those structures. And then there were a lot of questions about special education, so we clarified the language, refined the actions related to that. So those are some of the highlights of those 32 actions and 16 revised actions. So the plan is actually broken into 5 parts. The first part is a summary. So if you want to just read anything, if I can just point you in 2 places, the plan summary is a great place to look. It's only 5 pages. And it talks about our greatest strengths and our areas of need, as well as how we're looking at performance gaps and what we're doing. The other one to look at is the 3rd one down, the stakeholder involvement. That explains everything I just explained tonight, but then it also goes through every single action that says that's new or revised, all the 32 actions and 16 revised I mentioned. It says exactly what was revised, what was new, and why. And so if you want to see all that, that's in the stakeholder involvement section. It's about midway through. In between those two sections is the annual update, so that's the area I was talking about, where we had up on the wall, what do we plan to do and what we actually did, and there's what budget we planned and what the actual budget, or the estimated actual budget. So that takes up many, many pages, and so that was displayed with these stakeholder groups. And then the fourth bullet down is what we plan to do next year and the year out, the 18, 19, and 19, 20, with budgets that go with it. So those include all the new actions. And new actions and revised actions are highlighted. It says at the beginning, either new in parentheses or revised in parentheses. And then the last part is a large section-ish where we have to just narrate why, how we're using our funds to increase and improve services for our unduplicated pupils, and those are our students that are low income, English learner, foster youth, and homeless youth. And so a lot of the things that you see in the annual updates, the goals, actions, and services, actually almost in every section, things are repeated. We're required to repeat, so that's why the plan just keeps getting longer and longer. But if you want to see it, tell the public, if you want to really get a gist of the plan, look at the plan summary and the stakeholder involvement. That'll give you a big picture. So, like I said, at the May 15th meeting, joint meeting with the PIAC and DLAC, it was unanimously approved that we wanted to bring the draft to you, that it was ready for you. And then all along, we've been receiving technical assistance from the San Mateo County Office of Education. They're the entity that approves the plan. Once we get your approval, we submit it to them. It doesn't go beyond them. And so what they do is they just ensure that we are compliant with the requirements, and that we're actually meeting with them. They've been looking at the plan. They're meeting with us, me and Julie and Abe in our business office to kind of go through it to make sure that if there's any corrections that we make them before we bring it to you June 13th. So we'll probably have minor corrections for the June, hopefully minor. They've actually gotten some feedback saying, you're one of the better plans in the county. So I feel confident that we'll have very few changes. And then next steps, I've already mentioned all this before. So they'll let us know by October 8th. They usually tell us earlier though. And like I said, by June 13th, we'll be pretty confident that our plan will be approved by the county because they've been working with us alongside. Any questions from the board?
Do we have any questions? No?
I have a question, guys. I've gone to some of the PIAs and I follow the things you're doing. You're doing a tremendous job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I hear
It's a team effort.
from the parents and everybody that you really engage everybody. So thank you, because it's important.
Thank you. Well, I get a lot of help. You know, I have Elaine helping with the family engagement. I have all the principals and the AFT. It's a collaborative effort to make this happen. So, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCulloch. We do have a question for you from Trustee Ali.
Yes.
So you talked about the technical assistance, and then it says minor corrections will be made. Are there any corrections to be made, or is that just in case?
No, they are going to meet with us next week. A lot of times it's just make sure you are redundant and mention this in this section here that you've already mentioned here. You just have to repeat it or expand upon this explanation. A lot of it is explanation and narrative, and so it's just adding detail. But it won't change the essence of the plan. It won't change the actions that we're planning to do, which I think is the most important part that you approve. But all the compliance of explaining is really what they give us technical assistance on.
Any other questions?
And I can highlight at the June 13th meeting if needed, or I could put it in backup or something like, hey, this was changed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of like the person that reads a book, and you write a book, and they make a few little changes like that.
Thank you, Ms. McCulloch. Thank you for everything. Thank you. All right. At this time, we are now looking at 10F. Did I miss? I'm sorry. Sorry, 10.
You took A off the consent.
We took, I'm sorry. We took it out, right? Yeah. Wait, we only took out 10A, C, and I, correct?
Yes.
So we are now looking at 10F?
10A.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Them off the
10A.
consent.
10A.
Put them
10A,
on the
yes.
regular.
I apologize.
Yeah, so there was
10A,
a
approval,
request to remove that down.
business and financial procedures by Ms. Kessler, and we will now review approval of warrants.
Who requested?
Mr. Ali, did you have a question about the 10A?
A question on 10A?
It's actually 10B. Is it? Oops. Sorry. It wasn't A, but C and I are the ones.
Okay, so let's go ahead and vote and approve 10A, since it did not get voted on earlier.
Right. I will make the motion that we approve the warrants.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We will now look at 10C, revised contract services, Daly City Peninsula Partnership. The administration recommends approval of the contract with Daly City Peninsula Partnership in the amount not to exceed $183,000. The previously approved contract is being increased by $8,000 for additional after-school academic program at Marjorie H. Tobias School for the 2017-18 school year, funded through site and program funds. Do we have questions? Yes. This is one of the items that was removed from our.
I did have just a question about the 8,000 on that. Why they needed another 8,000?
So if you, in the backup, there's the contract, and the contract specifies the additional services that Daly City Partnership will provide. There's a variety of services they're providing to Tobias School. This is paid for from site funds, and we do our darndest to get all the contracts in the fall. We really do. But school sites often leave contracts on their desks, or they identify additional funds, and then they re-engage with a partner, and we come to the board to increase the contract that was approved previously. I think with Daly City Partnership, this may be the fourth contract that we've had to revise. So apologize for that. We can solve it in many ways. One is we don't approve any contract amendments after a date certain. We can give schools less discretionary funds at the school site so they don't have money to engage with partners. Or else we need to live with this rolling contract increases. And we can try to do a better job of it. We've impressed upon our school sites, we've impressed upon our partners that we want all of this in August, preferably. That's when we hope to have it. I'm willing to live with November, but this is not acceptable to me to have a contract come in May for services that have been occurring much of the year. So, yes.
Well, you said several more times. So why is it that they wait?
I explained there's a variety of things. One is, the likeliest one is that it's an informal agreement that is done verbally that we should not do. So services are starting to be provided without a signed contract. That is not something that we, Ms. Kessler and I, we do not support that at all. And school sites that approach life this way do need to speak to Ms. Kessler for quite a while about why this is not, we do this, we don't do this. Sometimes contracts, good intended contracts, don't get filed, but they get lost underneath other paperwork that comes along, and they don't realize that it hasn't yet been signed until they pull it up. Or we try to pay for it, and we say, you don't have a purchase order on this, so you don't have a contract, because once there's a contract, there's a purchase order assigned to that. And then other times, not this one in particular, but other sites, by the time January and February come around, they identify things that they were not able to do in the fall and say, hey, well, now we can do this, because now we have funds to do this. And so then they engage with partners for the spring. So
It doesn't sound like it's business. It's good business to be doing it, So
it
maybe
is
we
not,
need to do something about it.
I think you've heard me say that this is not acceptable, and I'm ready to say that we will not accept any amendments to contracts for services that started at the beginning of the year after a certain date. So if you can support me on that, I would be happy to implement that.
Well, the main thing is they need to know maybe some kind of a, I don't know if it's call it training or the guidelines, so that they won't wait till the time they need it and then get denied.
Yes.
But it's when you're saying that it's a partnership doing it many times.
I do not think it's our partners that are doing it. I think it's our school sites.
Okay, well, you said the other way around, so that's why I'm questioning.
I do think it's a combination in the sense that the partners are out there doing the work and they don't have a signed contract.
Well, they shouldn't be doing it.
So.
This is correct.
And what Mr. Vidalis was saying, Superintendent Vidalis was saying, is we don't support it in the sense that we may not know what's going on, and then they receive an invoice and they want to pay it, and we say there's no purchase order, and so they put in a request for a purchase order, and I say, where's the contract? And because I won't approve a purchase order if there's no contract. And so then it's like, oh, and so, okay, well, and then the vendor also knows that they're not going to get paid until a contract is there. So I won't approve a purchase order.
And, you know, the board has given me discretion to approve contracts up to a certain amount, and technically, this contract addendum is only $8,000. However, the board has already approved a contract with this vendor above my amount to authorize, and so this additional one would make me approve a contract more than what I can approve, even though the actual contract is less than the amount I can approve. That's why my preference is that we do this all at once.
I would also like to state that at the beginning of the year, or closer to the beginning of the year, I worked with, I think I worked with Stephanie and with multiple school sites and with Daly City Peninsula Partnership to try to gather up all the contracts. And I had a list of multiple contracts, and that was the original one that you approved. And the lady that I was working with there apparently have a couple different departments. And so where she was saying, yes, we've got all of ours, then another department, she didn't know that another department had some as well. And so there was a couple from that. And I will say that Daly City Partnership is really trying to work hard on that with me and the school sites, because they see that what's going on there. So
well, I have to say that our schools and our employees are supposed to be going through you guys. So when you say that they're trying to work better with the partnership, you guys have to set the guidelines for them.
Oh, absolutely.
And be sure that they're not going to get into this situation, because it's not good. And then, you know, okay, but enough. You guys will take care of it.
Believe me, Ms. Kessler and I understand this very well.
Yes.
And it's not as for lack of effort or lack of communication.
Right.
But it still happens, and so please forgive us
Yes.
and approve this contract. Since then we can get a lawsuit so we can pay this.
Yeah.
Do we have any other?
Answering.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying. Did we have any other comments or questions? I did want to just add that I do look forward to us streamlining the process, because at the end of the day, as a district, we need to set the tone and be accountable for the contracts that we administer. And I will say that it was a bit concerning to see Daly City Peninsula Partnership come up a few times to revise certain items. For me personally, because I manage contracts under my umbrella, and what I will share is that managers in our agency also have contracts with the same agency, and we are held accountable to ensure that the contract is completed on time and to ensure that people that are doing the work get paid. So we continue to look to your leadership and your discretion, but I would be remiss if I didn't share that I am concerned to see that Daly City Peninsula Partnership, who I know is a valued partner, we've seen them come up a few times and we've edited and adjusted things. So I hope that we do streamline this where we don't have this practice occur again. But with that said, is there a motion on the floor to approve and or not approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
You have a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You let me finish my
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank
Oh,
you.
dear.
And we now move on to 10F. Are we at 10? What is it now? Update on the state May revision budget. The administration will present an update on the May revision of the state budget for fiscal year 2018-19. Thank you, Ms. Kessler.
This has certainly been a fun evening. And there's a lot of information out there, and I was at a workshop this morning, and it was just amazing how much information, and I'd love to be able to share it all with you, but I am constrained with time, and I'm not going to go over everything in here, because you've got it here. A few of the things, because I know that I can continue on for a long time, if I'm allowed to.
Let's move.
So, thank you for being here. U.S. economy is doing good. All right. However, there's a lot of changes going on, as you know, and when there's a lot of changes, there's a lot of uncertainty, and I think you guys all know that there's a lot of uncertainty. So it makes me feel very nervous. And what I want to point out here most of all is the federal budget that was passed with so many tax cuts. The tax cuts are $1.5 trillion in tax cuts, and there were no decreases, there were increases in expenditures. So what I do for a living here is I would never feel comfortable with that, okay? So that leads me to this great uncertainty here. So that's basically the federal government, and you know that, of course, in California, you know, the tariffs, I worry about what might happen with these tariffs if countries get upset with us and decide to do a quid pro quo. Okay, so the state economy is also very good, although we don't have so many unknowns at the state level as we have at the federal level. I want to say that we are once again the 5th largest economy in the world, and Apple brought in 5 times the revenue that the entire state of Wyoming brought in. Yeah, 5 times. I mean, it's amazing. I do want to say that the budget that the governor wants it, and the legislature, is really as much politic-driven as it is economic-driven. So that's like huge here. But the governor started out when he came into office at the very beginning in 2011. There was a $27 billion deficit. I think you guys remember that, and we had a lot going on. We have had 106 months of recovery, and he will be leaving office with a $6 billion surplus. So this is just because everybody was talking about housing, and of course, with the high job rate that we have now, cost of housing is going up and becoming more unaffordable. This is good, interesting information for you guys to look over on your own. So this is a very busy slide. This all has to do with the state, the reserves, and school districts' reserves. So the governor is very interested in building reserves, right? I mean, we might not be able to build reserves that much, but the governor is very interested in it. And for the budget stabilization reserve, he's adding $4.36 billion to it, which brings it up to the $13.8 billion. That maxes it out. The reserve, according to the state constitution, cannot be higher than 10% of the state's budget, and that is 10% of the state's budget. So at the end of 18-19, it will be completely full and can only go up if the state budget goes up as well. And that was done in 5 years.
So that's huge. The state reserves, there's more reserves than just that budget stabilization account. There's 17 billion in total, almost 14 of it is there. So they've got $12.5 billion of reserves in the state. So that's their rainy day fund. But then there's the education rainy day fund. There's zero in the education rainy day fund because all of these have to be met before any deposits can be made. And we are in a test 1 year, and that is the only reason. I mean, we're not in a test 1 year. We're in a test 2 year, and that for 18-19, and that is the only reason why a deposit won't be made. The moment a deposit is made into the education rainy day fund, then our reserve cap kicks into place. And then it's no longer 6%, it's now 10%. And so our reserve can't be more than 10%. Not that the state's isn't 10%. It can be higher, but our reserve won't be able to be more than 10%. Test 1 years happen like once every 20 years or so. In the last 30 years, there's only been a couple, I think 2 times. So it's not very often. So Prop 98. And that Prop 98, as you know, is what funds the money that school districts should get in California. And that is supposed to be a minimum guarantee. I'll skip right to the bottom for a minute here. And we've had 30 years of Prop 98. And after 30 years of Prop 98, we're not even actually at where Prop 98 should be. So that minimum, we're actually slightly below the minimum where we're supposed to be. So it really is acting much better as a cap rather than a minimum guarantee. It's kind of like the maximum. So 30 years of it, it's not working really very well. But in Prop 98, there's $78.4 billion this year, which is $2.8 billion above the 2017-18 level. And again, it's a Prop 2, Test 2 year. I won't get into that. I mean, if anybody wants to learn about that, we can sit down and talk about it. It's very complicated. But like state revenues, since the governor, our governor has been very conservative in projecting revenues. And in January, the revenues that he projected, just for the months, first 4 months of this year, revenues came in $4 billion more than what he projected in January. And so now his projections through the end of 18-19, the reserves, the revenues are projected to increase by $8 billion in total, including this 4 here. So with a total increase of $8 billion over January, you would think that Prop 98 would just skyrocket and we'd get a lot more money, but we're getting very little money. We're getting less than 10%. $727 million more money, and that all has to do with how that money is coming in, because it's corporate money more so than personal income tax. If it were personal income tax money, we would get a lot more money, but it's not, so we get very little. And actually, for the 18-19 year, the only reason why, and that's for a 3 year, that's for 15-16, 16-17, 17-18, that's 3 years combined. They do all this reconciliation. And only of this $727 million, only $68 million has to do with the 18-19 year. And the only reason why we even get that, and this is a really good thing, because Governor Brown, if we have 3 years in a row of declining enrollment statewide, then they rebench Prop 98 and reduce the amount that they take the money away. And he knew that this would be the 3rd year. So even though the LOA had 16,800 reduction of ADA, which would be 3 years of ADA decline in the state, triggering the rebenching, Governor Brown said, no, we're going to have 600 more students this year. And the LOA decided not to argue with him on that, and that kept us from being rebenched down. So we would have lost funds. So thank you for that. And I already talked about the Prop 98 not really working as a minimum, but more as a maximum. So the governor's K-12 proposal, the majority of funds is going to the LCFF. And as we said earlier, he wanted to fund LCFF gap 100%. So there will be no gap, and that is what he continues planning to do. I totally expect legislature to also support that. I mean, that's what they're doing. Matter of fact, I'm hoping that legislature will add more to it. So the target was increased by the COLA, which, by the way, is not required. Part of what the governor is proposing is that makes it a requirement that LCFF should go up a minimum by the COLA. Right now, it's not actually required, but it's gone up by the COLA plus an additional augmentation of 0.29%. So together, that makes 3%. So if you're hearing that it's 3%, it is 3% for LCFF. I like to separate it out because this is the actual COLA, the 2.71%. And it's done in 6 years instead of his 8 years that he planned, because he is going out of office, and I think he wanted to fund it all. So that ends up being a 6.2% increase per ADA, and that's $587 per ADA. We'll be going over these numbers a little bit more later on because there's some important things I want to show you. Also, one-time funds of $2 billion. That's $344 per ADA, and I will be going over how much that is for the district later on. And that is dollar for dollar against mandated reimbursement, so which we worked very hard to put in all our records for, but that's how they're able to spend the same dollar in two places. Provides COLA for special ed and some other categorical programs, and a whole bunch of other little things that mostly don't affect us. Oops, did I go 2 or did I go 1? Okay. So this is the formula so that you guys all have it. I show it to you every time. The only thing I want to show you again is the increase is the 3%, and it's made up of the 2.71% COLA plus 0.29% augmentation. So the multi-year projection, the budget development and the multi-year projection is really the meat and potatoes for the district, right? So with 100% full funding of the LCFF, it closes a gap, and the gap that we have right now is $1.5 million for the district. The extra 0.29% augmentation brings us $158,000, and COLA brings us almost $1.5 million. So the total amount that would be increased for next year would be $3.2 million. Now I want you to notice that here's the COLA for the out years. This is what we're including in the budget. And I'm going to drop down to the STRS and PERS. So we're not finished paying the higher amount in STRS and PERS. And compared to this current year, next year we will have additional $843,000 in PERS and STRS costs. Now remember, we've been paying more and more every year as we've been going along. And in 1920 compared to this year, we'll be paying $1.7 million more, and in 2021, $2.7 million more. So if you look at the COLA here, it's 2.71%, and here it's a little bit lower, a little bit lower, a little bit higher. And over the next slide, over the last 18 years, it was 2.63%. So that would mean we would be getting close to this $1.5 million additional funds, right? So if you, again, look back down at 2019-20, this is bigger than the COLA would bring in. And this is bigger than the COLA would bring in those other years. So basically, if we just get COLA, because the gap is completely funded now, right? So unless they raise the base, we're completely funded with the LCFF. We are funded at 07-08 level with COLA added year after year. That's it. We have been restored to that level. the level we were in 07, 08.
Can I ask
And
a
as you
question?
know, we were way behind nationwide with that, right? I mean, we're like at the bottom of the barrel, very close, in the 40s.
Can I ask a question about that?
Sure.
Is there a push or a movement to raise the base for all?
There is.
Okay.
Okay, I'll talk a little bit about that in another slide. So ADA here, this is this year's ADA that we're getting principal apportionment on. That's what we're budgeting next year for. We get 1 year declining enrollment protection, so hopefully we won't be declining, but if we do, this is what we would get our revenues on, and then the following years it would go down. But we're basing this on all out years, and our unduplicated count is going to level out at 72.77% if we maintain it where we're at now. And then the one-time funds for the district that at $2 billion is going to translate to $2 million for us next year for one-time funds. And of course, we're building it to the LCAP. Okay, so concerns and considerations. Again, because LCFF is fully funded, we're really going to be pretty much tied to COLA, which again is not actually required at this point to give us, but the governor is trying to change the LCFF so it would be required as a minimum to give us the COLA, okay? But over the last 18 years, the average COLA is 2.63%, whip-de-doo, right? I mean, if that's all we're going to get. But will the legislature move some of the one-time funds, there's $2 billion, yes, $2 billion to the LCFF base? And there's a pretty good chance of it. Of the $2 billion, $812 million can be considered ongoing, and it's historically ongoing. So that would be a real kind of, because year after year, it's been proving that we have those funds. So there's a really good chance that might be go into the base. Will we get more money next year from that? No, but it would go into the base, and then we'd at least be able to budget it in the out years. I mean, we've been getting one-time funds over and over and over again, but we cannot budget it into the out years. We can only budget it into the year that the one-time funds are for. There is legislature out. They do have some legislative acts that they would like to pass, where it would give education a 60% increase, 6-0, in the LCFF. But that would become a new target. But at least it would give them a target to go for, right? And hopefully they will raise the base. They are talking about increasing the base, and I do think that there's a pretty good chance that some of the $2 billion will come out of the one-time and go into the base. That will be good for us. Basic aid districts aren't going to like that at all, because they're only going to get the one-time. If it goes into LCFF, they're already getting more in property taxes anyway, so of course they're going to argue against that. So will the school district experience declining enrollment? I'm going to tell you that my two biggest concerns in this district is the declining enrollment, which we have experienced, and the fear of what might happen in the future. That is a really big worry, because we've lost a lot of money because of declining enrollment. And the other thing is the STRS and PERS. The amount of money, it's like $5 million more a year when it's fully funded. That's going to cost the district more than before. It's going to be 12.5, 1/8 of our budget, of our general fund budget, will go to paying STRS and PERS, because all these increases that we've got, so that we're back at 2007-8 levels adjusted for COLA, getting us back to where we were before, doesn't take into consideration any of these extra costs for STRS and PERS. So that's a huge deal to us. And then the federal tax reform limits on the SALT, as they call it, the state and local taxes of $10,000 for California. Our you don't even have to be wealthy to have a $10,000 property tax payment, and not to mention your income tax returns and such. And so 70,000 people in California out of 40 million, 70,000, which is, I did the math, is like 0.175%. So just a little bit below 0.2% of the people, but that includes kids. So the top 1%, really, of taxpayers are paying 40% of the taxes in California, of the revenues that California receives. 40% comes from the top 1%. That's scary, because if the economy takes a dive and capital gains get lost, we'll feel that immediately. And also, we want to have some respect for these top earners. They may make a lot of money, but they sure put a lot into the pot, and we don't want them leaving California. So let's see, we've done that. Oh, and minimum wage goes up to $12 an hour, which will certainly make everybody be able to afford living in California, right? Sarcastic.
And In-N-Out Burgers pays, In-N-Out Burger pays 16 cents.
But what that's also likely going to do is, because the federal government doesn't adjust for cost of living in states, and so we're right there with Alabama and Mississippi in what poverty level is considered to be. So the poverty level is still a nationwide poverty level, which will affect the free and reduced count, and our unduplicated percent could go down, and as you've seen, there's a lot of money attached to that as well. And of course, these poor families, because they're, instead of, now that they're maybe making $12 an hour and just barely eke above the federal poverty level, national poverty level, they're certainly not going to really be in a position to be able to afford the lunches that their kids are getting. So I kind of jumped around a lot. It was kind of interesting that way. And of course, we're still in negotiations. So our proposed budget that we're going to be bringing to you, that I'll be bringing to you at the next meeting, will not include any increases in salaries and benefits that would be negotiated, because we haven't negotiated anything. It will include the step and column and other things that we kind of roll into the following years, but nothing for negotiation. So next steps, Mrs. McCullough did already kind of go over that a little bit. We need to pass the budget, adopt a budget before June 30th. The LCAP and the proposal will come to you at the next board meeting, and in the final board meeting in June. We were hoping that the LCAP will be approved first, and the budget which supports the LCAP will be approved after. And then the state will approve its budget, and then we will make any changes necessary in the first 45 days to our budget to reflect anything that the state has done that affects our budget. Questions?
Already asked mine.
Yeah.
Questions?
We already asked
No
them.
questions? Questions?
No.
Thank you, Ms. Kessler. It's a lot of information. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
All right. Now we are looking at new classroom furniture for Fernando Rivera Middle School. The administration recommends the governing board approve the purchase of new classroom furniture for Fernando Rivera Middle School. This purchase will be done under the U.S. Communities 2017 Master Agreement SV-150028-13 contract. It will be purchased from Verco at a cost not to exceed $120,000. This purchase will be funded by the general fund and as part of the multi-year furniture replacement program.
Yeah, I had asked for that one also to be pulled off, just because of the amount. And the same thing with the first one, 183,000 was really more why I asked for it to be pulled off, not necessarily the 8,000, but I had a question about the 8,000. So just for this one, I guess I just wanted to know if there are plans to, I mean, what are the other plans as far as furniture replacement? Like, is there another school that's next, or just a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we have 15 school sites, and I think we've only done maybe 7 or 8.
Okay.
And so the furniture is replaced at the same time as a school is painted, at the same time that the playground is replaced. So we just, each school site, as they get painted, has all those 3 upgrades. So yes, there are more schools in the future that will be getting this.
Great. Sounds great.
Some may say it's happening not fast enough, and I would agree, but because we are using it out of our operating funds, we do need to spread it out to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. If we have no further questions or comments, do we have a motion?
Yes, I move that we approve the purchase of the new classroom furniture for Fernando Rivera Middle School. Yep, that's enough.
Second the motion.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We will now move on to board policies and administrative regulations. And we are looking at board policies administrative regulations first reading. The administration recommends updates to the attached board policies administrative regulations as modified by county council and stated in a first reading. Do we have any questions or discussion on this? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion that we approve the board policies, ARs, as presented for first reading.
Do you have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Now have a governance team member comments, reports, and reflection on board meeting guidelines, and we will start with Trustee Ali.
Yes. Today, focused on we will listen actively and openly, build upon the ideas of others, look for common ground, and paraphrase for understanding. And I feel like we had honest deliberation tonight, and we came to some good agreements. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Brusuela?
I didn't have a chance to look at it ahead of time. No. I'll just use the same one I do all the time. We will keep our focus on the best interests of our students.
Thank you. Trustee?
I just let you keep our remarks brief and to the point. Stay focused on top of that.
Trustee Douglas?
Pretty good. I actually was just looking over the whole lot of them and to see if we were doing it, and I think we did pretty well on the whole bunch there. Although we do seem to have made a fairly long meeting out of it.
Yeah. Thank you. I chose we will listen actively and openly, build upon the ideas of others, look for common ground, and paraphrase for understanding. And I think we did that as well. And I wanted to wish everyone a happy early Memorial Day weekend and in honor of all those who have served our country. And so now, if there are no other reports or reflection, we will move on to Board of Trustees vacancy. We'll open up the discussion for, and the administration seeks direction on the process the board wishes to use to fill the board vacancy. If pursuing a provisional appointment, the board shall elect 2 members to serve on an ad hoc committee to determine whether applicants meet eligibility criteria. We will open it up for discussion.
I'll just repeat what I said last time. I feel more comfortable having a 5-person board than a 4-person board. We might have two splits and things like that. So, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Any other comments, Ms. Busquilla?
No, I kind of have to agree with the same thing, although we are pretty much going half of the year already, so it's like, yeah, I don't know. Whatever.
Trustee Crew? You agree with, do you have something you'd like to add?
I was saying at the last meeting, I mentioned now, so the person who has been selected has to be appointed the chair. Is that correct?
I believe I've worked on a timeline. I think if it's the board decides to move toward that, we could have a good 3.5 to 4 weeks of advertising, because we do have an extra week here in May, an extra Wednesday, so we could still make the appointment at the June 27th meeting, and still have 3.5 to 4 weeks of advertising.
Well, wait a minute. 3 weeks advertising, and then we appoint? Then we have to interview?
Yes.
But I mean, doesn't all that take time?
We can advertise. I think there's 5 weeks between now and June 27th, so we can advertise for the next 3.5 to 4 weeks, collect the applications, and then in order to determine eligibility, it's very simple.
Oh, I know.
You have to be basically you need to be a registered voter of the Jefferson Elementary School District, which means you're 18, you live in the district, and you're a U.S. citizen, and that qualifies you to be a board member. There are other qualifications, which you all know, which you would get to determine when you interview candidates, if that's how you move. So there's 2 ways you can do this. There's 3 things you can do. 1, you can vote to do a provisional appointment, and that would allow that candidate to finish out Dr. Douglas's term, which is over in December. It would allow them to run for election in November, so they can put in their application for that. So you can do that, a provisional appointment. The second thing the board can do is make a decision to wait for an election, which would take place in November. The third thing the board can do is do nothing, and then the county superintendent of schools will either choose to wait for an election or call for a special election.
But the election is this December for Rebecca, so that's not even a. I mean, the person would have to apply to run by the second week, I think, of August.
Second week of August, yes.
So it's not about they're going to have to run anyway if they want to keep that job, unless they don't want to do it.
Yep.
So it doesn't. I mean, I think the way you said it would make me think like we can have an election. We can call for an election. No, the election is already coming.
We cannot call for an election. No. We need to wait for the November election. But the board can make that decision.
Oh, you mean just wait and not have anybody?
Yes.
No, we don't. I think we don't really want that.
So that's what you need to vote on today. And then once you vote on that, then I can do what I need to do.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, we don't want to do that because.
Right. So I think we received the 3 options that we have to discuss. So maybe we can determine one of those 3 options tonight. Is that I hope that's our goal. So we are opening it up to see if anyone has recommendations or strong feelings about a certain route that we should take. If we could share them now. I will share.
No, I mean, I think two of us already said, at least we
Yeah,
said it.
I will share that I agree that I don't think we should have a I agree that I don't feel comfortable with the four-person board. And I will say, going through the process myself of being appointed, I think that even though it was a short window, it did give me a perspective of whether I wanted to be in the seat or not. And then at that point, I decided I do want to keep the seat, and I ran. But again, it's up to us tonight to determine that path for that person. So if anyone would like to make a recommendation.
I'd like to also recommend that we do the interviews, we advertise and do the interviews, and then it's going to be up to that person to decide whether they want to run. You know, I mean.
So it sounds like you're saying the provisional appointment, is that correct? Through
Yes,
through
and so the board, somebody would need to make a motion and second that, and then you would need to
Is that the
vote.
terminology we use, provisional?
Provisional appointment, that's the term, yes.
So I'll make a motion. Okay, so we can move on, because it's getting late. I'll make a motion that we consider, that we vote on having a provisional appointment. We advertise an interview and appoint a temporary board member. And that position will, I don't have to add this now, I guess, but that position will then be available for this December for permanent.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so just for the record, 4 voted in favor of that. Dr. Douglas is not able to participate in that vote, so.
Okay.
One quick thing, when Ms. Leigano was appointed, we had a question about, are you able to make it to a specific date that we had a governance workshop? Like, I think that was a question on the application, like, if you're appointed, can you make this meeting? Would you like me to add to the application, if you're appointed, would you consider running for? It will likely be a question you're asking in the interview anyway, but we could ask it on the application.
I think that's
Just so that you know from up front.
Yeah, I think we need to word it in such a way that that would not prevent somebody from applying, because if they happen to have something already scheduled.
Yeah, I think the way that it is
well,
like.
let me finish.
Yeah,
You're interrupting me. Because before, when we have appointed people, or not appointed them, there also is a training locally they can go to. So they can go to training other than that one training we're asking. And I thought that was kind of because somebody did back out of applying for that very reason. And I hate to lose a good candidate if they happen to have something during that time. So that, I think they need to know that they should go to training and to see if they're available, but don't make it a part of that, oh, if you don't go, well, we won't consider you.
Yeah, and I'm sorry that was interpreted that way, but my question here is not around being available for a future training. My question is, would you like to know if a candidate is interested or planning on running for election in November?
Oh.
Yeah, I think that's I think
assume that if they apply, they probably are.
Yeah,
we can make
I don't think you should ask
yes, no, or maybe.
No.
I mean, you would likely ask that question as part of your interview process anyway.
I think it's an important question, but I think that maybe we could ask it. Rather than putting it on the application, because I think we.
Because I was saying, like, even just being appointed for like 4 months, there's still a lot of school that takes more than 4 months to learn.
Yeah.
It
is our
really
hope.
think you're now making it sound like they have to make a commitment, and even though I agree with you that if they're applying, naturally they would like to serve.
I get
don't
it.
want
We
to
do not
be-
have to have the question on the application. That's fine.
What?
No, I mean, I hear from the board that that's
I
not.
think you interrupted me again. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry if I interrupted you, but I think that I got enough direction from the board. We'll eliminate that question.
Okay, because then after you waited until I finished.
Thank you. I know this is we're very passionate about ensuring that we get a good candidate.
Yes.
And so I appreciate the dialogue around this. So we do need to make a decision. I think we did make a decision, and if you're seeking
provisional
direction, do we need to have any
No,
further
we're
discussion
good.
around that?
You're going to pursue a provisional appointment, and we'll start the process.
Okay.
And we'll set it up for June 27th.
May I ask a question? Will you be putting that in the newspaper?
Of course.
Which one?
The one that has general circulation in Daly City, which is San Mateo County Times.
We don't have that. Not everybody gets it.
Well, that's the only one that circulates in Daly City. I mean, we could do the San Francisco Chronicle, but
And we'll also be using, will we be using also our page, right, social media?
yes, we'll be using our social media. We'll also be emailing it to all parents. Anyone who's interested in our board meetings is going to get the announcement. The libraries will get the posting. Our school sites will get the posting. There's a variety of avenues to try to reach as many people, and those who are interested in our school district are likely already on our board agenda distribution list.
Thank you. All right, I think we have made our decision for this evening, and before we move on to closed sessions, I don't think we have any persons wishing to address the board. Is that correct, Ms. Covere? Thank you. I know that we're about to close and it's been a long evening, but I want to mention that I went to the city council meeting last week, and I was able to accept a proclamation on behalf of the Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, but I accepted it on behalf of the Pacific Islander community, and I was deeply honored. But I was a little shaken to see how the council members interacted, and it really bothered me. And I mean, no disrespect. You guys know me and my heart. I have nothing but heartfelt respect for everyone. But I do want to refer back to the importance of us being able to be respectful in a manner of agreeing to disagree. And I don't want anyone to take it wrong. I know that for a long time we've been doing really great, but I know that that comes from passion and from a good place. I really believe that. I believe that a lot of times when we engage and we're just really passionate, we want to get our point across. As a president of this board, that is my ask, since this is the meetings that I am tasked to run, that we try our best. We try our very best to be respectful of each other. And at the end of the day, to just bring a sense of humanness to our meetings. So that is, in closing, before we head to close session, I'm very thankful for all the hard work and passion and commitment that each of us make to be here. And so that's just my reminder for this evening. And we will now close to convene to closed session. I don't know if we need a break since we took one earlier.
Oh, we need about 5 minutes to gather the materials.
Okay.
So.
All right. We will now close to convene to closed session and take a break. Short break.